How do you get more flavorful bud or more concentrated oil production, cannabinoid oil production, right? That's what everyone in the industry is constantly going for. And I think if you're going to want to go after more flavorful bud and a higher concentration of cannabinoids, you have to correct a misconception in the marketplace. And when I say no one's realized this yet, it's because everyone's went with what everyone's been talking about. So people say that terpenes volatilize off the plant at the end of your grow, and that's actually not correct. What you have to kind of actually think about between terpenes and cannabinoids is what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? Do the cannabinoids come first or the terpenes come first? What actually happens is the terpenes come first on the plant, and from there, the terpenes, their initial enzymatic reaction is with an acid actually on the plant. Then from there, that terpene then evolves into CBGA. From the CBGA has another enzymatic production with another terpene that then begins to form into THCA or CBDA. And from there, the rest of the cannabinoids begin to get produced off the plant. So that's how cannabinoids get produced, right? And what comes first is the terpenes on the plant, not the cannabinoids. So then part two of your question is, how do you get more flavorful in harvest or bud and a high concentration? Well, the way how you get a high concentration of cannabinoids is you have to produce a high concentration of terpenes, pretty much max out on your terpenes around week 5 into flowering so that there's enough terpenes for the plants to cannibalize itself. And a lot of people think that the terpenes, once again, get volatilized. And volatilized means they float off the plant, but that's actually completely incorrect. When you go back and you look at all the boiling points to all the different terpenes and the cannabinoids, they range from 200 degrees Fahrenheit up to 440 degrees Fahrenheit. So with having such a high boiling point, it's impossible actually for the terpenes, even the ones with the smallest amount on the plant or lowest concentration, it's impossible for them to actually volatilize off and float away. This is actually the reason why your flower smells like hay. Actually, it's a big issue within the industry, is like, why does your flower smell like hay after you've harvested and cured it? And that's because your plants didn't produce enough terpenes early on so that the CBGA could cannibalize them into the other cannabinoids, right? And so because of the $30,000 field study report that Drops the Balance completed this year, we actually have a rate at how fast the terpenes cannibalize off of the plant due to its enzyme reaction with the CBGA. So when you see that, and then after you harvest, the plants are actually still cannibalizing the terpenes. So the rate at where the terpenes begin to slow down from being cannibalized is when the amount of water decreases off of the plants. Okay, so because you need water for all enzymatic production to happen. So when you reduce the water content on the flower through the curing process, the rate of enzymes happening with the cannabinoids cannibalizing the terpenes to produce other cannabinoids really significantly begins to decrease. So how do you make a flavorful flower, which was part two? Part two is, first you have to use Drops of Balance, because Drops of Balance actually fixes your soil. That's why we now really recommend to treat your soil one time with 5 mLs per gallon right at the beginning of the grow. Before you even plant, you neutralize all the stuff that's in the soil, because there's always contaminants in the soil. Every company ships dirty soil around the world, so you can't get away from it. The 5 mLs per gallon Drops of Balance neutralizes all the contaminants, and it actually allows the soil biology to start to take off immediately. There's around 100 trace minerals in Drops of Balance. When you combine it with the bacteria bind with the trace minerals because that's the coenzyme, and they begin to produce enzymes. And those enzymes, when you have a full enzymatic production happening on a 24-hour cycle, because they call it the 24-hour enzymatic production cycle, well, you have the enzymes there for all these conversions to happen, right? So in the beginning, when the plant's super healthy and it has all the minerals needed, it's going to produce a high amount of terpenes, and the plant actually peaks out in producing terpenes close to week 5 into flowering. And then the plant begins to rapidly cannibalize the terpenes up into harvest. And then from harvesting, you still have anywhere from 7 days to 3 weeks, depending upon your curing process, for the water to decrease out of your flowers, for the rate of enzymatic production or enzyme reactions to happen, where once again the terpenes are being cannibalized, that rate significantly decreases. And as it finally starts to slow down, the terpenes that are left over from not being cannibalized into other cannabinoids is going to be how you get a flavorful plant. And so fixing the misconception of that terpenes volatilize off, which no one knows this. I probably am the first person in this industry to recognize and realize what's actually happening to the terpenes. So you're already on this road. You don't want to give up. Just keep heading down this direction. Maximize these terpenes early on with the minerals. Give the basic needs of what the plant's going to need, the 444, the alfalfa meal, the kelp, the lanthionite. Hit it with BAM, your bacteria, the fermented BAM. Spray it down once a week with minerals. Like I always told you, 4 mLs per gallon for the foliar spray, and then 1 ml per gallon for every watering and feeding. And then make sure to add in the 15 mLs of BAM, the fermented BAM, when you're watering, whether you're watering or feeding, either or. Making sure to stay on top of your top dressing once a week. You do all those things, you're going to have a high concentration of cannabinoids and a really nice profile. I promise, 100%.